My name is Ryan Cooper. I am 19 years old, and until 3 months ago, I believed my father was a struggling truck driver who barely made enough to keep himself fed, let alone help support his first family. I believed the story he told my mom when they divorced when I was 6 years old. I believed him when he said he could not afford child support. I believed him when he missed every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation. I believed him because I was too young to know that some men are not just absent fathers. They are liars who build entire second lives while their first children go hungry. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, or at least the beginning of the end. It was a Tuesday night in September. I was in my dorm room at community college, which I could only afford because I worked 3 part-time jobs and qualified for every grant and scholarship available to kids from low-income families. My roommate had gone home for the week, so I was alone, eating instant ramen for the 4th night in a row because my bank account had exactly $12.37 until Friday's paycheck from the campus bookstore. I was scrolling through Facebook, not really paying attention, just killing time before I had to start my shift at the campus bookstore, when I saw the suggestion. You know how Facebook does that thing where it says, people you may know, and shows you random faces? Usually it is someone from high school you barely remember, or a friend of a friend from some party you went to once. But this time, the face stopped me cold. The name was Tyler Cooper. The profile picture showed a kid about my age, maybe a year younger, standing in front of a brand new BMW. He was smiling, wearing what looked like an expensive polo shirt, and the caption under the photo said, "Thanks, Dad, for the early birthday gift. Best father ever." I stared at that photo for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 30 seconds. The kid looked like me. Not exactly, but enough that anyone with eyes could see we were related. Same nose, same jawline, same slight dimple in the left cheek when we smiled. And his last name was Cooper. My hands were shaking as I clicked on his profile. It was public, which seemed like a gift from the universe or maybe just terrible judgment on his part. I scrolled through his photos, and with each swipe, I felt something dark and hot building in my chest. Something that felt like rage mixed with grief, mixed with disbelief. Tyler Cooper went to Riverside Preparatory Academy, a private school that cost more per year than my mom made in 2 years working double shifts at the diner. His photos showed family vacations to Hawaii, to Disney World, to somewhere that looked like Europe. There were pictures of a big house with a swimming pool, pictures of him playing lacrosse on perfectly manicured fields, pictures of family dinners where everyone was smiling and the table was covered with food that did not come from a box or a drive-through dollar menu. And in so many of those photos, standing beside Tyler with his arm around the kid's shoulders was my father. My father, who I had not seen in person in 4 years. My father, who sent my mom maybe $200 a year if we were lucky. My father, who told me on my 18th birthday, the one time I had managed to get him on the phone, that he was sorry he could not come see me, but times were tough, and he was barely getting by himself. I kept scrolling. I found Tyler's mother's profile. Her name was Patricia Cooper. She worked as some kind of consultant, and her profile was full of pictures that screamed comfortable upper-middle-class life. There was a photo from last Christmas showing her, my dad, Tyler, and 2 younger girls who looked about 10 and 12. The caption said, "Blessed to have my beautiful family. Another wonderful Christmas with the people I love most." The people he loved most. I took a screenshot of that photo. Then I took screenshots of everything. The house, the vacations, the cars, the private school, Tyler's posts about his college fund, a post from my dad's own profile, which I had not even known existed, showing him at Tyler's lacrosse game with a caption that said, "So proud of my boy." His boy. I set my phone down and realized I was crying. Not soft tears either. I was sobbing, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and hurts your chest and makes you feel like you cannot breathe, because suddenly everything made sense in the worst possible way. My father was not poor. He was not struggling. He was not barely getting by. He had made a choice. He had chosen them over us. He had built a whole new family and given them everything while my mom and I scraped by on nothing. I thought about my mom working 16-hour shifts at the diner, coming home with her feet bleeding because her shoes had holes in them, but she could not afford new ones. I thought about how we had spent 3 winters with a broken furnace because we could not afford to fix it, sleeping in the living room with the oven on for heat, which I later learned was dangerous, but we had no other choice. I thought about my 8th grade graduation, where I was the only kid whose parents did not show up, and how I told everyone my dad was working out of state because I was too ashamed to admit the truth. I thought about my 15th birthday when I asked my mom if we could go to Red Lobster just once because I had seen commercials for it and it looked so nice. She had cried and told me we could not afford it, and I felt so guilty for asking that I never asked for anything again. I got a job the next summer at 15, lying about my age so I could work at a car wash, and I never asked my mom for money for anything ever again. And while we were doing all that, while we were struggling and scraping and going without, my father was taking his other family to Hawaii. He was buying his other son a BMW. He was paying for private school and college funds and family dinners with steak and lobster. I do not know how long I sat there crying. Long enough that I was late for my shift at the bookstore. Long enough that my roommate's side of the room got dark and then the streetlights came on outside. Long enough that the grief turned into something else. Something harder. Something that felt like purpose. I opened my laptop and started researching. I found the address of the house in the photos. It was in Riverside Hills, which was about 40 miles from where my mom and I lived in our 2-bedroom apartment in the bad part of town. I found the name of the private school Tyler attended. I found Patricia Cooper's workplace. I found my father's business, because apparently he owned a construction company. Not worked for one, owned one. The man who told my mother he could not afford child support because he was just a struggling truck driver owned a construction company. I thought about the child support hearing when I was 12, where my mom had begged the judge to make my dad pay something, anything, and my dad had shown up in old jeans and a worn-out shirt and told the judge he was barely making minimum wage driving trucks and could not afford to pay more than $100 a month. The judge had believed him. We had all believed him. And all that time, he had been going home to a house with a swimming pool. I looked up his construction company online. Cooper and Sons Construction. Established in 2008. Multiple locations. Dozens of employees. Reviews that called them reliable and professional. An About Us page that showed a photo of my dad in a nice suit, standing in front of a fancy office, with a little bio that said he had started the company from nothing and built it into a successful family business with the support of his loving wife Patricia and their 3 children. 3 children, Tyler and the 2 girls. I did not even rate a mention. I took screenshots of all of it. The business website, the reviews, the About Us page, the house listing I found from when they bought it 5 years ago for $750,000. Every piece of evidence that proved my father was not some poor struggling worker, but a successful business owner who had been lying to the courts for over a decade. But I did not just want evidence. I wanted them to see what he had done. I wanted his perfect second family to know the truth. I wanted him to look me in the eyes and explain how he justified it all to himself. I went back to Tyler's Facebook page. He had just posted an hour ago about how his family was having a big dinner on Friday night to celebrate his dad's birthday. The post said his mom was making his dad's favorite meal, and they were all so excited to celebrate. There were already comments from relatives saying they would be there, that they could not wait. that it was going to be a wonderful family evening. A wonderful family evening. While 40 miles away, his half-brother was eating ramen alone in a dorm room. I made a decision right then. I was 19 years old. I was legally an adult. I had spent my entire childhood being powerless, being the kid whose dad did not care enough to show up, being too young to do anything about it. But I was not powerless anymore. I was going to that birthday dinner. The next 3 days were a blur. I could not focus on my classes. I barely slept. I kept looking at those photos, at the faces of people who had everything I had never had, and I felt this cold determination settling into my bones. I was not angry anymore, not in the hot, explosive way I had been that first night. Now I was calm, focused. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I told my boss at the bookstore I had a family emergency and needed Friday night off. I borrowed a button-down shirt from a guy down the hall who was about my size. I used the last bit of money in my account to fill up the gas tank of my 12-year-old Honda Civic, the one with the check engine light that had been on for 2 years and the passenger door that did not open from the outside. Friday came. I had one class that morning, and I sat through it without hearing a single word the professor said. After class, I went back to my dorm and took a shower. I put on my best jeans, which were still faded and worn but at least did not have holes, and the borrowed button-down shirt. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. I looked older, harder, like someone who had made a decision and was not going to back down. I left campus at 5 in the afternoon. The drive to Riverside Hills took 45 minutes. I spent the entire drive practicing what I was going to say, how I was going to introduce myself, what I would do if my father slammed the door in my face. But deep down, I knew he would not. He could not. Not in front of his perfect family. Not in front of people who did not know I existed. Riverside Hills was exactly what I expected. Big houses with perfect lawns. Trees lining quiet streets. SUVs and luxury cars in every driveway. It looked like something out of a movie, like the kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever happened and everyone was happy all the time. The kind of neighborhood I used to dream about living in when I was a kid. I found the address. The house was even bigger in person than it looked in the photos. 2 stories, white with blue shutters, a 3-car garage, a perfectly manicured lawn with flower beds that someone clearly paid good money to maintain. There were cars in the driveway, a black Mercedes SUV, a silver Lexus sedan, and the BMW that Tyler had posed with in his Facebook photo. I parked my beat-up Honda on the street, and I am not going to lie, the contrast was almost funny. My car looked like it had been assembled from spare parts, which was not far from the truth. The muffler rattled. The paint was sun-faded. Next to those luxury vehicles, it looked like a prop from a movie about poverty. I sat in my car for a few minutes, watching the house. I could see movement through the big front windows, people passing back and forth, the glow of lights that probably cost more than my mom's monthly rent. I could hear music playing, something classical and refined. I could smell food cooking, and my stomach twisted with hunger and something darker. I thought about turning around, just driving away, and pretending I had never seen those Facebook photos, going back to my dorm and my ramen and my 3 part-time jobs, and just accepting that this was how life was, that my father had made his choice, and there was nothing I could do about it. But then I thought about my mom, about how she cried at the kitchen table when the eviction notices came, about how she skipped meals so I could eat, about how she worked herself sick, literally sick, with pneumonia one winter, because she could not afford to take time off, and we needed the money. And I thought about my father posting on Facebook about being blessed and grateful for his beautiful family. I got out of the car. Walking up that perfect driveway felt surreal, like I was in a dream or watching myself from outside my body. I could hear laughter from inside the house. I could hear someone saying something about dinner being almost ready. I could hear what sounded like a little girl asking when they could have cake. I rang the doorbell. The music inside stopped. I heard footsteps. The door opened, and there stood a woman I recognized from the Facebook photos. Patricia Cooper, my father's wife. She was pretty, probably in her early 40s, wearing a nice dress and an apron that said, "Kiss the cook." She had a smile on her face that faltered when she saw me, probably because I clearly was not one of the expected guests. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her voice was pleasant, confused but not unfriendly. "I am here for David Cooper's birthday dinner," I said. My voice was steady, calm, like I had every right to be there. "I am his son." The color drained from her face. She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open, and I could see her mind working, trying to make sense of what I had just said. "I am sorry, there must be some mistake," she started to say, but I could see in her eyes that she knew there was no mistake. I looked too much like Tyler, too much like my father. She knew exactly who I was. "No mistake," I said. "My name is Ryan Cooper. David Cooper is my father, and I think we need to talk." Before she could respond, I heard a voice from inside the house. "Patricia? Who is it? Tell them dinner is in 5 minutes." My father. I would recognize that voice anywhere, even though it had been years since I heard it in person. He sounded happy, relaxed, like a man who had not a care in the world. Patricia looked back toward the voice, then back at me. She looked panicked. "Please," she whispered. "Not tonight. This is not a good time." "It is never going to be a good time," I said, and then I raised my voice. "Dad, it is Ryan, your other son. The one you have been pretending does not exist." The house went silent, completely silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. And then I heard footsteps, quick and urgent, and my father appeared in the doorway behind Patricia. He looked older than he did in the photos, grayer, but he was wearing nice clothes, a button-down shirt and slacks, and he looked healthy, well-fed, successful, nothing like the struggling worker he claimed to be in court. When he saw me, his face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. Shock, fear, anger, panic, and then something like resignation. "Ryan," he said quietly, "what are you doing here?" "Funny question," I said. "I could ask you the same thing. What are you doing here in this big house with your other family while my mom and I have been living in poverty for the last 13 years? "Ryan, this is not the time," he said, his voice low and urgent. He glanced behind him, and I could see people gathering in the hallway. Tyler, looking confused. 2 little girls who must have been my half-sisters. An older couple who were probably grandparents. All of them staring at this stranger on the doorstep who just called David Cooper Dad. "Then, when is the time?" I asked. "When were you planning to tell them about me? When were you planning to explain to your wife and kids that you have another family? That you have a son who is older than Tyler? That you have been lying to everyone for almost 2 decades?" "Who is this?" Patricia asked, her voice shaking. She was looking at my father now, not me. "David? What is he talking about?" My father stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door partly closed behind him, but not before I saw Tyler's face. The kid looked shocked, his eyes moving between me and our father like he was trying to solve a puzzle that did not make sense. "Ryan, you need to leave," my father said. His voice was harder now, with an edge of anger. "You cannot just show up here and..." "And what?" I interrupted. "Ruin your perfect life. Expose your lies. That is exactly what I am here to do." "I will call the police," he threatened. "Please do," I said. "I would love to explain to them how you have been committing fraud for years, how you lied in court about your income, How you claimed poverty while owning a construction company and living in a house worth $750,000. I am sure they would find that very interesting. Almost as interesting as the court system will find it. He went pale. You do not understand the situation. Then explain it to me, I said. Explain to me how you could look my mom in the eyes when she was begging you for help with rent and tell her you did not have it. Explain how you could miss my birthday every single year because you were supposedly working so hard to survive and then turn around and throw birthday parties for Tyler with ponies and bounce houses. Explain how you could pay for private school and BMWs and vacations to Hawaii while my mom was working herself into the ground just to keep us fed. Ryan, it is complicated, he started, but I could see he had no real answer. How could he? There was no answer that would make any of this okay. The door opened again, and Patricia stepped out. She had tears in her eyes. How old are you? She asked me. 19, I said. She looked at my father. 19. Tyler is 18. She did the math in her head. You had another child before Tyler? Before we got married. Patricia, let me explain, my father said, reaching for her arm, but she pulled away. You told me you did not have any other children, she said. Her voice was getting louder, losing that composed tone. When we started dating, I asked you directly if you had kids, and you said no. You lied to me. I did not think it mattered, he said weakly. That was a part of my past that I wanted to leave behind. A part of your past? I said, and I could hear my voice breaking now, the anger cracking through. I am not a part of your past. I am your son. I have been your son every single day of my life. You do not get to just decide I do not count because you started a new family. Tyler appeared in the doorway again. Dad, is this true? Do you have another son? My father looked at him, and I saw something in his face that made me even angrier. Regret. Sorrow. The kind of emotion he had never shown to me. Tyler, go back inside. No, Tyler said. He stepped out onto the porch, looking at me with wide eyes. You are my brother? Half-brother, I said. But yeah, same dad. Very different experiences with him, though. Tyler looked at our father. Why did we not know about him? It is complicated, my father said again, like that explained anything. It is not complicated, I said. It is simple. He abandoned me and my mom. He lied about his income to avoid paying child support. He built a whole new life with your family and pretended his first family did not exist. That is not complicated. That is just being a terrible person. Watch your mouth, my father snapped, finally showing some real anger. You do not get to come to my house and disrespect me. Your house, I repeated. Yeah, nice house. My mom and I are living in a 2-bedroom apartment where the heat barely works. But hey, at least you have a pool. Patricia was crying now, mascara running down her face. How long have you been lying to me, David? 13 years, 18 years, our entire marriage. Patricia, please, he said. Can we talk about this inside? In private? No, she said firmly. No more private conversations. No more secrets. I want to know everything, right now. Does he have a mother? Where are they? Why have you not been helping them? His mother and I were together for a few years, my father said, and I could see him scrambling for a version of the story that would make him look better. It did not work out. She got pregnant, and we tried to make it work, but we were too different. We split up when Ryan was 6. I paid child support when I could, but I was not making much money back then, and... You are lying, I interrupted. You have been lying to everyone, and I have proof. You want me to show them the paperwork from the court hearings? The documents where you claimed to make minimum wage while you were starting your construction company? The tax returns you hid from the family court judge. His face went hard. You do not have those documents. I do now, I said. I filed a request with the court last week. They are public record, Dad. Anyone can request them. And I also have screenshots of all the Facebook posts about vacations and private schools and new cars. And I have testimony from my mom about all the times you claimed poverty while apparently living like this. So, yeah, I have plenty. Patricia looked at him with something like horror. You have been committing fraud. I have been trying to protect this family, he said, to give you and the kids a good life. That money was for you. Money you stole from his mother? Patricia said, pointing at me. Money you were supposed to use to help support your other child? He was fine, my father said, and that was what broke me. That casual dismissal. That assumption that I was fine. I was not fine, I said, and now my voice was shaking. I was not fine when we had no heat in the winter. I was not fine when my mom cried because she could not afford to buy me clothes for school. I was not fine when I had to work 3 jobs just to go to community college because you spent my childhood telling the courts you were too poor to help. I was not fine, but you did not care because you had your real family, the family you actually wanted. That is not fair, he said. What is not fair, I said, is that Tyler got everything while I got nothing. What is not fair is that you paid for his private school while my mom homemade my Halloween costumes from thrift store clothes. What is not fair is that he got a BMW for his birthday while I am driving a car that barely runs. What is not fair is that he got a father and I got abandoned. Tyler looked like he might be sick. I did not know, he said quietly. I swear, I did not know. I know you did not, I said, looking at him. This is not your fault. You did not do anything wrong. But he did. I pointed at our father. He made choices. He chose to lie. He chose to abandon his first family. He chose to give you everything and give me nothing. And I am here to make sure everyone knows the truth. An older woman, who I assumed was Patricia's mother, appeared in the doorway. What on earth is going on out here? Grandma, this is my brother, Tyler said, his voice hollow. Dad's other son, the one we did not know about. The older woman looked at my father with an expression of pure disgust. David, what have you done? I could see my father trying to figure out a way to salvage this, to spin it somehow, but there was no spin that would work. Too many people had heard too much. The truth was out, spreading through the house like a stain. I think you should leave, my father said to me. Now. I will leave, I said, but I am not going away. I am filing paperwork with the court on Monday. I am reporting the fraud. I am making sure everyone knows what you did. Your business, your friends, your clients. Everyone is going to know that David Cooper is a liar and a fraud and a deadbeat dad who abandoned his son. You will ruin everything, he said. Good, I said. You ruined my childhood. Seems only fair. I turned to leave, but Tyler called out to me. Wait. I stopped and looked back at him. He looked scared, confused, but there was something else in his eyes, too. Something that looked like guilt. I am sorry, he said. I did not know. If I had known, I would have. I do not know what I would have done, but I would have done something. It is not your fault, I said again. You were a kid. We both were. But we are not kids anymore. We are old enough to know the truth, old enough to do something about it. What are you going to do? He asked. I am going to make sure he pays back every dollar he owes my mom. I am going to make sure the courts know he lied. And I am going to make sure that no one ever thinks David Cooper is a good man again. Patricia spoke up then. I want to help. Everyone turned to look at her. She was still crying, but there was steel in her voice now. If what you are saying is true, if David has been lying to everyone, then I want to help you prove it. I have access to all our financial records, bank statements, tax returns, business documents, everything, and I will testify if I need to. Patricia, you cannot be serious, my father said, his voice rising. You are my wife. I am your wife, but I am not going to be complicit in fraud, she said. And I am not going to let you pretend that your son does not exist. If you did this, if you really did all of this, then you do not deserve to get away with it. I looked at her, surprised. I had expected her to defend him, to close ranks and protect her family. But instead, she was standing there, offering to help me destroy the man she had married. And I realized something. She was not protecting him. She was protecting her kids, making sure they knew that lying and abandoning your children was not acceptable, no matter what. Thank you, I said quietly. My father looked around at all of us, and I could see the exact moment when he realized he had lost. His shoulders sagged. His face crumpled. For a second, he looked like a scared old man instead of the successful businessman he pretended to be. Ryan, he said, and his voice was different now. Smaller. I know I messed up. I know I should have done better. But please, do not do this. We can work something out. I can start paying your mom what I owe. I can help you with college. We can fix this without involving the courts. You had 19 years to fix this, I said. You chose not to. Now I am making the choice for you. I walked back to my car and did not look back. I could hear voices behind me, Patricia and her mother arguing with my father, Tyler asking questions, the little girls crying because they did not understand what was happening. I got in my Honda, turned the key, and listened to the engine sputter to life. As I drove away from that perfect house, in that perfect neighborhood, I did not feel victorious or satisfied. I felt empty and sad and angry all at once. But I also felt something else. Something I had not felt in a long time. I felt like I had some power. Like I was not just a victim of my father's choices anymore. Like I was finally old enough, strong enough, to fight back. The drive home was a blur. I do not remember much of it, except that I cried most of the way. Not sad crying. Angry crying. The kind of crying that comes when you have been holding something in for so long that it finally breaks free. When I got back to my dorm, I sat in the parking lot for a while, just staring at nothing. Then I called my mom. It was late, almost 10 at night, but I knew she would be up. She was always up late, working on something or worrying about something. She answered on the second ring. Ryan, is everything okay? Mom, I said, I need to tell you something. And I told her everything. About finding the Facebook profile, about the house and the private school and the vacations, about showing up at the birthday dinner, about what I said and what happened and Patricia offering to help. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then my mom said very quietly, You should not have done that. Mom, he has been lying to us for years. He has money. He owes you. I know what he owes me, she interrupted. But Ryan, honey, you should not have gone there. You should not have put yourself in that situation. What if he had hurt you? What if? He is not going to hurt me, I said. I am not a kid anymore, Mom. I am 19. I am old enough to stand up for myself. And I am old enough to stand up for you. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. You should not have to stand up for me. You should not have to fight my battles. You should be in college, focusing on your future, not dealing with this. My future is never going to be right if I do not deal with this, I said. Mom, he took everything from us, everything we should have had, and he gave it to his other family. That is not okay, and I am not going to pretend it is okay just because confronting him is uncomfortable. I am so sorry, baby, she said. I am so sorry you had to grow up like this. I am so sorry I could not give you more. This is not your fault, I said. You did everything you could. You worked yourself to the bone for me. But Dad, he did not do anything. He chose not to, and now he is going to face the consequences. We talked for another hour. She told me about the early days when she and my father were together, how he had been charming at first, promising her a good life, promising to be a good father. How everything changed after I was born, how he became distant and angry, how he started staying out late and coming home drunk, how she finally left him when I was 6 because she was afraid he would hurt me. She told me about the court hearings, how he had shown up looking shabby and poor, how he had claimed he could barely feed himself, how the judge had believed him and set child support at $100 a month, which he rarely paid anyway, how she had tried to go back to court multiple times, but kept getting shut down because he was so good at hiding his money and making himself look sympathetic. "I tried, Ryan," she said. "I really tried. But the system is designed to protect people like him. People who know how to work it." "I know you tried," I said. "But now I am going to try. And I am not going to stop until he pays for what he did." We hung up a little after midnight. I sat in my dorm room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. Thinking about Tyler's face when he learned he had a brother. Thinking about Patricia offering to help. Thinking about my father's expression when he realized his lies were catching up to him. And I thought about what came next, because showing up at the birthday dinner was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, the part where I had to follow through on my threats, the part where I had to actually take him to court and prove he had been committing fraud. That weekend, I did not sleep much. I spent hours researching family law, child support enforcement, fraud charges. I called legal aid clinics and asked about getting help. I organized all the screenshots and documents I had collected. I made a timeline of everything my father had claimed in court versus what he had actually been doing. On Monday, I went to the county courthouse and filed a motion to revisit the child support order. I included all my evidence: the Facebook posts, the property records, the business registration documents showing my father owned a construction company, the photos of the house and the cars and the vacations, everything. The clerk who took my paperwork looked it over and whistled. "This is quite a case you have got here. Is it enough?" I asked. "I am not a lawyer," she said, "but if even half of this is true, your father is in serious trouble." I also filed a complaint with the district attorney's office about the fraud. I knew that was a long shot, that they probably would not pursue criminal charges, but I wanted it on record. I wanted there to be no doubt about what he had done. Then I waited. That was the hardest part. Waiting for the court to process everything. Waiting to see if my father would respond. Waiting to see if Patricia would actually follow through on her promise to help. I did not have to wait long. 3 days after I filed the motion, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something told me I should. "Hello, Ryan? It is Patricia. Patricia Cooper." I sat up straighter. "Hi. I did not expect to hear from you." "I know. I am sorry for just calling like this. Tyler found your number somehow. I think from your Facebook profile. I hope that is okay." "It is fine," I said. "What can I do for you?" She took a breath. "I have been going through David's files. All of them. Bank statements, business records, tax returns, everything. And Ryan, you were right. He has been hiding money for years. He has multiple accounts that I did not even know about. He has been taking cash out of the business and not reporting it. And he has been claiming losses on taxes that never happened." My heart was pounding. "Can you prove it?" "I have copies of everything," she said. "I made a complete record. Bank statements going back 10 years, business ledgers, tax documents. I even found some emails where he was talking to his accountant about how to hide income from the courts." "Holy shit," I breathed. "I am meeting with a lawyer tomorrow," she said. "My lawyer, not his. I am filing for divorce. And I am going to give your lawyer or whoever is representing you copies of all these documents. Because what he did, it is not just wrong. It is illegal. And I will not be married to someone who would do this." "Thank you," I said. "Thank you so much." "Do not thank me," she said quietly. "This is not about you, not really. This is about teaching my kids that actions have consequences, that lying is not okay, that you do not get to hurt people and get away with it just because you are clever about hiding it." "How are the kids?" I asked. "Tyler and the girls?" She sighed. "Tyler is angry. Not at you. At his father. He feels lied to, which he keeps asking why David would do this. The girls are too young to really understand, but they know something is wrong. They know their father did something bad." "I am sorry," I said. "I did not want to hurt them. I just wanted the truth to come out." "The truth should have come out years ago," she said. "David should have told me about you from the beginning. He should have been supporting you and your mother all along. This is his fault, not yours." We talked for a while longer. She gave me her lawyer's contact information and told me to have my mom call them. She promised to send over all the documents as soon as her lawyer reviewed them. And she apologized again, even though she had nothing to apologize for. After we hung up, I called my mom and told her everything. She could not believe it. "She is really going to help us." "She really is," I said. "Why would she do that?" Mom asked. "She does not even know us." "Because she is a decent person," I said, "and because she does not want her kids growing up thinking it is okay to treat people the way Dad treated us." My mom got a lawyer through Legal Aid, a sharp woman in her 50s named Jennifer Martinez, who specialized in family law. When Patricia sent over all the documents, Jennifer called me, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. "Ryan, this is a gold mine," she said. "We have him dead to rights. He has been hiding income for over a decade. We can go after him for back child support, penalties, interest, and court costs. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Can we actually win?" I asked. "With this evidence?" "Absolutely. The hard part is going to be collecting. He might try to hide assets or declare bankruptcy. But yes, we can win." The court date was set for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, my father tried everything to make the case go away. He called me directly, leaving voicemail messages that started out angry and ended up pleading. He sent me texts promising to make things right if I just dropped the case. He even showed up at my dorm one night, drunk and desperate, begging me not to ruin his life. That was when I called campus security and had him removed, and I filed for a restraining order, which was granted immediately because he was harassing me. Tyler reached out to me too, but his messages were different. He did not ask me to drop the case. He just said he was sorry, that he had always wanted a brother, and now that he had one, everything was ruined. I told him it was not his fault, that he could not control what our father had done. We started texting regularly after that, just getting to know each other. It was weird bonding with my half-brother over our shared terrible father, but it was also kind of nice. Finally, the court date arrived. My mom and I got dressed up in our best clothes, which were not very good but were the best we had. Jennifer met us outside the courthouse, looking confident and professional with a briefcase full of documents. Inside, my father was already there with his lawyer, a guy in an expensive suit who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. Patricia was there too, sitting on our side of the room, which made my father's face turn red. Tyler was with her. The judge was a stern-looking woman in her 60s who did not look like she tolerated any nonsense. She listened to Jennifer present our case, showing all the evidence of hidden income, the business records, the bank statements, the Facebook posts, showing a lifestyle that was completely inconsistent with what my father had claimed in court. My father's lawyer tried to argue that it was all circumstantial, that my father had legitimately struggled financially in the early years and only recently become successful. But Jennifer destroyed that argument with the business registration documents showing the company had been profitable from year 2 and with tax returns that contradicted everything my father had told the family court. Then Patricia testified. She sat in the witness box and calmly explained how she had discovered the truth, how she had found the hidden accounts and the falsified documents. She presented the emails between my father and his accountant. She confirmed that they had been living well for over a decade, that my father had never struggled financially the way he claimed. My father's lawyer tried to object, to argue that Patricia was a scorned wife trying to hurt her husband. But the judge shut him down. The documents speak for themselves, counselor. Unless you have evidence that Mrs. Cooper falsified all of these records, I am going to accept them as legitimate. He did not have that evidence, because it was all real. The hearing lasted about 3 hours. At the end, the judge did not even need to take time to deliberate. "Mr. Cooper," she said, looking directly at my father, "I have been on the bench for 23 years, and I have seen a lot of dishonest people try to avoid their responsibilities. But this case is particularly egregious. You deliberately and systematically defrauded the family court system in order to avoid supporting your child. You lied under oath. You hid income and assets. You manipulated the system to deprive your son and his mother of the support they were legally entitled to." She looked down at her notes. "I am ordering you to pay back child support in the amount of $372,000, which represents what you should have been paying all along based on your actual income. I am also ordering you to pay for Ryan's college education, including room and board, for the next 3 years. And I am referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution for fraud and perjury." My father went pale. His lawyer looked shocked, and I felt this wave of something wash over me. Not satisfaction exactly, more like validation, like someone in authority had finally looked at the situation and said, "This was wrong. This man was wrong, and he needs to face consequences." The judge was not finished. "Furthermore, Mr. Cooper, I am ordering you to pay Mrs. Ryan's legal fees and court costs. You put her through hell for 13 years, forcing her to struggle and scrape by while you lived in luxury. The least you can do is pay for the lawyers she needed to hold you accountable." "Your Honor," my father's lawyer started to say, but she held up a hand. "I am not interested in hearing excuses, counselor. Your client is a fraud and a liar. He made his choices. Now, he gets to live with the consequences. This court is adjourned." She slammed her gavel down, and it was over. We walked out of the courthouse into bright sunlight. My mom was crying, but in a good way, in a relieved way. Jennifer was grinning, and I just felt exhausted, like I had been carrying something heavy for a long time and had finally been allowed to set it down. Patricia came over to us. "I am glad that is over," she said. "Thank you," my mom said. "Thank you for helping us. You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," Patricia said. "It was the right thing to do." Tyler was standing a little ways away, looking uncertain. I walked over to him. "You okay?" He shrugged. "I do not know. Everything is messed up. My parents are getting divorced. My dad is basically a criminal. I found out I have a brother who had a terrible life while I had everything. How am I supposed to be okay with that?" "You are not supposed to be okay with it," I said. "But you are also not responsible for it. You were just a kid. So were you," he said. "Yeah, but I am not a kid anymore. Neither are you. We are both old enough now to decide who we want to be. We do not have to be like him." Tyler nodded slowly. "Can we stay in touch? Like, actually get to know each other?" "Yeah," I said. "I would like that." Over the next few weeks, everything changed. My father tried to appeal the judgment, but his appeal was denied. He tried to hide assets, but Patricia and her lawyers were too smart for that. They found everything. The court put liens on his business, his house, even his car. He was forced to start making payments immediately. The district attorney did decide to press charges for fraud and perjury. The trial was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, my father was basically broke. The business had to be sold to pay what he owed. The house went into foreclosure. Patricia and the kids moved into a smaller place, and Patricia went back to work full-time to support them. Tyler got a job to help out. He said it was good for him, that he had been spoiled his whole life and needed to learn what real work was like. He and I started meeting for lunch once a week, slowly building a relationship that should have existed all along. My mom got her money. She paid off our debts, fixed up the apartment, bought herself a decent car for the first time in her life. She cried when the first check arrived. "I cannot believe it," she kept saying. "I cannot believe this is real." "It is real, Mom," I said. "You are finally getting what you deserved all along." As for me, I did not have to work 3 jobs anymore. The court order meant my college was paid for. I could actually focus on school. I could eat real food instead of ramen every night. I could breathe without constantly worrying about money. But more than that, I felt different inside. I felt like I had stood up for myself and my mom. I had faced down the man who abandoned us, and I had won. Not just legally, but morally. I had proven that his choices were wrong, and I had made sure he could not keep hurting people the way he hurt us. 6 months later, my father was convicted of fraud and perjury. He got 2 years in prison, which some people said was light, but I did not care. The punishment was not the point. The point was that the truth came out, that he had to face what he did, that he could not just walk away and pretend it never happened. On the day of his sentencing, I was in the courtroom. He looked at me as they led him away in handcuffs, and I do not know what he expected to see on my face. Satisfaction, maybe. Triumph. But I did not feel either of those things. I just felt sad. Sad for the relationship we never had. Sad for the father he could have been but chose not to be. Sad for all the years we lost because he decided his second family was more important than his first. But I also felt something else. I felt free. Free of the weight of wondering why I was not good enough. Free of the anger I had carried for so long. Free of the lie that I was somehow to blame for his abandonment. I was 19 years old when I showed up at my father's birthday dinner and destroyed his perfect life. Looking back now, some people might say I was too harsh, that I should have tried to work it out privately, that I should not have ruined his marriage and his business and his relationship with his other kids. But those people did not grow up the way I did. They did not watch their mother cry because she could not afford to feed her child. They did not work 3 jobs while their father posted pictures of vacations on Facebook. They did not spend 13 years being told that their father was too poor to help when he was actually just too selfish. So no, I do not regret what I did. I regret that it had to happen at all. I regret that my father made the choices he made. But I do not regret holding him accountable. I do not regret fighting for my mom and for myself. And I do not regret showing up at that door and speaking the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it made everyone. Because sometimes being an adult is not about being diplomatic or polite. Sometimes being an adult means standing up and saying, "This is wrong, and I am not going to pretend it is not." Sometimes it means being the one who breaks the silence, even when it is painful. Sometimes it means choosing truth over comfort. I turned 19 and learned that becoming an adult does not happen on a specific birthday. It happens the moment you realize you have the power to change things, and you decide to use that power. It happens when you stop being a victim of other people's choices and start making your own. It happens when you look at an unjust situation and say, "No more. Not today. Not ever again." My father had 19 years to do the right thing. He chose not to, so I chose for both of us. And I am not sorry. Thank you for listening to my story of growing up faster than I ever wanted to. I have left 2 more stories on your screen, both from young men who learned that sometimes becoming an adult does not happen at 18. It happens the moment your family needs you to be strong. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be forced to grow up overnight, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, age is just a number, but courage defines who you really are.